Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. Hope everybody's doing okay. My name is Matt Ramberger. I'm with Smith Pump Company, and today our webinar is entitled The Gator Series. Our agenda today will feature a brief introduction of speakers, a highlight history of Smith Pump, videos from previous installations, Landia guest speaker, a summary, and question and answers. Before we get started, if by chance you're disconnected or dropped off the webinar, please sign back in. You really don't want to miss what's being presented today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A feature on your screen. Presenters today are me, Matt Ramberger with Smith Pump Company, and Art Savage, the Landia Regional Manager for Landia. So a brief introduction to Smith Pump Company. Smith Pump began in 1962 in Waco, Texas, founded by Tom Smith. Our employee base today is about 75 employees, still headquartered in Waco, with branch offices in Fort Worth, Austin, Houston. We cover the entire state of Texas and Oklahoma. The Smith family is still a strong presence of leadership for Smith Pump, keeping us a family-owned and operated. The Waco facility is our prime manufacturing location. We do lift stations, we build package lift stations, and we can build control panels too. Handling pump repairs and service is a major part of what we do. All locations of Smith Pump have repair shops. Field service out of all locations for pulling and installing pumps. We have a motor shop in the Fort Worth location. Smith Pump is a complete pump company offering pump products, service excellence for 60 years. So Smith Pump represents Landia. Landia makes an excellent chopper pump. The pump's offered in several different configurations. One is as a duty pump. It slides down a guide rail system. It can retrofit to an existing customer's guide rail system. It's got a submersible motor on it. It can run continuously as long as it's submerged. It's got an external knife system that chops the sewage before it enters the volute, unlike other manufacturers where the debris got to get in the volute and then chewed up. Ours actually chops it up before it enters the volute. It's available up to 48 horsepower. It's got a continuous duty, inverter duty rated motor. It's maintenance free as long as the motor's submerged, but we do recommend that you change the oil at least once a year and check on the cutter system. The cutter system's an external system, so you can change it without taking the pump apart. In fact, the end user, it's real simple to change. Before I turn this over to Art with Landia, I've got a couple of videos. The first one is a Llano County mud. Llano County called and they had a lift station that they were having a lot of trouble with maintenance and spending a lot of money on vac trucks and getting a fire hose to break up the foam and scum layer on top of the wet well. And in fact, the scum layer was so thick that when we put our pump in there, it just sat on top of the scum layer. And we had to put in, we had to get a pipe to break it up along with the fire hose to break up the scum so that the unit would fall down in the wet well. And what we installed at Llano County Mud was a Landia eradicator or irrigator, which it's not as a duty pump. It just sits down in the wet well and runs and keeps the solids broke up and chews up the debris, and so that the duty pumps don't stop up. So let's watch the video. There's no sound with this video. So there you see the chopper pump with a trumpet, what we call a trumpet, and an air hose. It sucks the air in as it's running and induces the air into the water to help break up the scum. Also helps with odor. There you can see that it just wouldn't go down in there. And once we got it down in there and it started running, you can see where it's bubbling up air and breaking up the scum layer. And so we'll speed up the video a little bit because it took a while to get it broke up. And a few hours later, it's just broke up, just water. Everything's suspended, chewed up, and no grease layer. And that's the way it looked nowadays. So worked really well and helped Landia County Mud out of a lot of problems with maintenance issues. Okay, the next video is it's from the city of Madisonville. They put in a brand new lift station, put in somebody else's chopper pumps, and they didn't work very well, and they were having a real bad scum layer as well. This lift station's east of Interstate 45. It services Buc-ee's and several other restaurants there in the surrounding area, and they had a real problem with grease as well. And they were getting all kinds of debris from the bathrooms at Buc-ee's. So this video's got some sound, so let's watch this video. So the next one is of the same unit, same submersible unit with a trumpet and a blue air hose. And what we did here is the city of Fairfield were having trouble with their brush rotors on their oxidation ditch. The rotors were giving them all kinds of problems with maintenance. They couldn't get the company to come over and work on them because of the pandemic. And they needed help putting oxygen into the ditch to help eliminate them not making their permitted minimum dissolved air of 6. So what we did was we put the unit on a steel plate with some lifting chains, and we dropped 2 of them into the oxidation ditch, turned them on, and let them run continuously as a trial unit. And After 90 days, the customer elected to buy the units because they worked so well and resolved the problem. And now we're in the process of putting them in as a permanent installation. Permanent installation would be on a guide rail system, so they're easy to get up and maintain. So let's watch this video. So now I'm going to turn it over to Art Savage with Landia.
Okay, well, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate that. And let's get this slideshow started. We appreciate you all tuning in today to learn about the Landia chopper pump in our Gator series. Landia manufactures a wide product range of submersible mixers, chopper pumps, and air jets. They're used not only in municipal applications, but also in many industrial applications as well. And you can see some of those items that we sell there right at the bottom of your screen. Landia is a worldwide company. We started back in 1933 in that small blacksmith shop that you see there in the top left corner of your screen. And we've grown into a very large company now, enabling us to support our subsidiaries around the world and bring the Landia product line to people and customers everywhere. That little hand pump that you see up in the top right corner is where we began. And we have certainly grown into a major company today. This is the founder of Landia and the inventor of the world's first chopper pump back in 1950. He had a great idea of taking a pump and putting an external knife system on it to chop up all kinds of debris and manures and other slurries that we were encountering at the time. And his legacy lasts until today with our chopper pump as it exists now. And there are some pictures of our current product line. Matt mentioned it in the beginning of his video, of this webinar, I should say, but you see the duty pump type setup there on the left. and a dry installed unit in the middle there, and a long shaft type setup on the right. And so we have a chopper pump for just about every application that we run into. Our chopper pump is a little bit different, as Matt mentioned. You can see here from this diagram, our external knife system. Our knives are hardened to a Rockwell C60 hardness, so they last a good long time. The unique thing about the Landia chopper pump is that it performs all the macerating and chopping of solids before it even enters the pump. And the knife system is easily installed and maintained by just a simple Allen wrench. You don't have to take the whole pump apart to maintain the unit. And it's quite a nice setup and very inexpensive for the owner. And that's one of the key components that Landia is thinking about, is making it not so expensive to maintain a chopper pump. And we like to call our unit a true chopper pump because we separate the chopping and the pumping. And it allows us to use a fully open impeller that prevents the pump from clogging after the solids are macerated. We can send the product right down the pipe to wherever it needs to go. So it's really a true chopper pump. Here's another picture that you can see, and a little bit better picture on the right, where you can clearly see how our knife system works. You have the two rotating knives that rotate both in front of and behind the fixed knives. And so anything that goes into that pump is going to be well macerated. Other chopper pumps use a cutting impeller, and that cutting edge on the impeller will get dull over time and it will need to be replaced. And that cutting impeller can be quite an expensive replacement part. And so with a Landia chopper pump, the owner gets good long service at a very low operating cost. Today, of course, the big problem is convenience items such as wet wipes and other things like that that can cause normal pumps to clog quite easily. And you can see a picture of a major clog there on the right. Our chopper pump with that macerating system can handle the wet wipes, but it also can handle all kinds of other stuff that comes down the pipe towards the pump. And in some of our industrial applications, you can see we deal with cutting up melons and whole pineapples and other green stuff that's being macerated. We have turkey feather applications where you can imagine those are quite tough to chop up, but no problem at all for our chopper pump. We do shellfish and other fish products that we can macerate and chew up, and as well as chicken parts, as you can see from this photo here. So a whole chicken carcass goes in, and after it passes through our chopper pump, a few minutes later, it looks like what you see there on the right. Here's a little video of our chopper pump in action. I like this video simply because you can see the rotating knives in action around the fixed knife. Our guys in the service shop were having fun one day and just demonstrate exactly how that external knife system looks. You can see there, anything that goes through the section of that pump is going to be well macerated and chewed up. And so again, a very nice system, and it can even serve as a bottle opener if need be. We do a lot of retrofits of existing pump systems, so it's no problem for Landia to take our chopper pump and turn it into, or I should say, place it into position where we can custom make the elbow so we don't have to do too much pipe rework. And it's a closed couple pump, so it has a very small footprint when it's in the horizontal configuration, as you see there. So if we have a tight space to fit the pump in, it's certainly no problem at all. Let's take a few snapshots of some typical applications of our chopper pump. Here we have right here in Texas, not too far down the road from Commerce, is Cooper, Texas. This is at a drinking water facility, and they had some backwash filtrate that was going to a holding pond. And around the edges of that holding pond during these hot summer, long summer months in Texas, of course, cattails would grow and other weeds and stuff like that would grow into that around that pond. And as they would die, they'd fall into the water and get sucked into the duty pump that they had. And that duty pump was taking that pond water, the holding tank water, and then shooting it through a rainbird nozzle and land applying it, as you can see in that picture on the right. And so it didn't take much for the pump to be clogged with the cattails and other debris. And so the engineer reached out to us and said, will your chopper pump handle this material so that it we eliminate not only the clogging of the pump, but also the clogging of the rainbird nozzle, which is a 1-inch nozzle. And of course, we told them we feel absolutely convinced that it would solve the problem. So they installed our unit. As you see there, we were able to fit it in that tight space without doing much pipe rework, or any pipe rework for that matter. And that's been operating now for about going on about 4.5 years now. And that rainbird nozzle has never clogged. And so it solved the problem right away. So that cutting system that you saw really does a great job of macerating debris. Here's a picture of another application just to illustrate that in some places we have to put a stainless steel wet end on the pumps when we're dealing with low pH or food waste, like we're dealing with this particular application. So we can customize the pump to fit the application where needed. Here's another application of just a recirculation type chopper pump setup, where we need to macerate debris or condition the liquid in a tank. And right down the road from where I am now, I'm in Burleson, Texas, and just down the road in Cleburne at Technical Chemical, they put in a Landia chopper pump to deal with debris that was being swept into the sump on the floor at the end of the production schedule. This particular plant makes carburetor sprays and brake fluid and other materials that are sold throughout the many different auto parts stores around the nation. And the red straws and the white plastic nozzles on these spray cans, at the end of a day, they accumulate on the floor and they just get washed down into the sump. And so they were worried about those plastic pieces clogging a standard pump. And we put in our chopper pump here, and that's been operating for about 3.5 years now, and no issues whatsoever. In fact, they want to buy some additional Landia chopper pumps to use elsewhere in the plant. We're really here to talk about our Gator series today, and but it's important on all these Gator products that Matt mentioned and you saw videos of, they all use the chopper pump. They all use that chopping system. And so that's why I wanted to make sure you understood how our chopper pump works. The Eradicator is what we use for handling tough lift stations. You saw some video from Llano County and also from Madisonville about how much of a problem lift stations can be. I think in every town in America, there's at least one problem lift station. One that the guys have to spend most time at, dealing with clogged pumps or dealing with scummy issues or whatever. And so the Eradicator is a perfect fit to help solve some of those problems. The city of Wichita, Kansas has purchased Landia Eradicators to handle a couple of their problematic wet wells. And what's happening is, of course, you have all this debris and convenience products again and rags that accumulate and want to clog the duty pump. And many of you may have seen pumps like this when you pulled them up because you get some kind of alarm or notice that you need to go out and look at something at the lift station. Rags just sit all over the pump, and other debris get into the pump, and you spend a lot of man hours dealing with a very unpleasant situation. And in some cases, it can cost quite a bit of money due to damage to the pump. And so what we do is we take our Eradicator, similar to what you saw in the video, and in a situation like this, even in small round lift stations like this, there's usually room enough for us to fit our Gator Eradicator in there. And in this particular application, this was in Kentucky, you can see that there's a bunch of scum sitting on top of the wet well, and also a lot of rags that were clogging the two duty pumps there. And they were, in this particular application, they were going and having to unclog the duty pumps 3 to 5 times a week. And so very costly in terms of man hours. And the guys just really wanted to find an easy solution to this everyday problem that they were facing. And so we took our chopper pump and made a simple modification to that pump, put a recirculation nozzle on it and a simple foot for the pump to sit on. And all you have to do is drop it right down into place. So in this particular case, the owner made a temporary hook system using pieces of rebar, whatever it took to get the pump down in, sitting next to the duty pumps. Again, this was before, and then after, you can see, I'll play this little video. In about 10 minutes time, this lift station was clear of the scum on top. And for about going on probably 8 to 9 years now, as far as we've heard from the customer, the pumps are no longer clogging, and they're certainly not spending 3 to 5 days a week going out there and having to unclog those pumps. So the Eradicator is a very nice system when you have clogging and ragging issues. It's not, it works well for scum if the scum layers are not too thick. If the scum layers start to get thick, then we'll use the Irrigator, which I'll talk about here in a minute. But here's just a standard engineering drawing of our Gator. Here's a picture of one. This particular picture that you see is actually a picture of the Eradicator that was used at Landia County. The video you saw at the beginning of the presentation showed the Irrigator that Landia purchased, but on that same order, they also purchased an Eradicator to put in one of their other lift stations that were clogging with a lot of debris and plastic knives and forks and things like that that were showing up, especially during the summer months when people were going to their cabins. And so we just dropped that Eradicator simply down into the wet well, and it solved that problem. So very simple pump application to solve a problem without replacing your duty pumps necessarily, and getting you back underway and reducing man hours and time spent dealing again with unpleasant pump clogging issues. So a very nice solution. And here's just a diagram of both the Eradicator and Irrigator packages that we typically offer and provide. On the left, you see a setup where we have a Landia chopper pump acting as a duty pump, but also as a Eradicator with a 3-way automatic valve there that you can see. When the lift station is filling, we can turn on the pump and position the valve in a way that serves as a recirculation setup to, again, bust up scum, keep rags chewed up. And then when the lift station reaches a certain level, the valve will actuate and open so that we can pump the lift station down. And so that's a very nice setup. A lot of times, all we have to do, though, really is just drop a Eradicator or Irrigator down next to the duty pumps like you see on the right-hand side. And that's enough, spend a very little amount of money to solve a major problem without having to replace your duty pumps. So we look at what's the best solution for the situation. Let's talk about the Irrigator a little bit. The Irrigator, of course, is introducing air into the bulk liquid, as well as chewing up rags and debris. Here's some pictures of a scum well that we encountered in the city of Houston at one of their wastewater treatment plants. And in this particular application, 2 of their secondary clarifiers shared a single scum pit. And they had some other duty pumps in the pit that were not able to chew up the debris and the scum. They were just pulling down the liquid and leaving all the trash and debris in the scum well. And occasionally, something would happen and that whole scum well would overflow. And you can imagine, just by taking a look at all that stuff that you see floating on top, you can imagine the mess it would make at the plant. And so they were looking for us to come in and demonstrate to them that our Irrigator would maybe solve that problem. And it certainly worked very nicely there. We were able to drop that 12.2 horsepower Irrigator down into the scum well and incorporate all that nasty debris into the bulk liquid and help to really clean up the area. And so a very nice application. But when the scum layers are so thick, the mechanical energy alone from the Eradicator won't be enough. And so we like to use the air that we get from the Irrigator. And you've probably seen as Matt mentioned, it has the trumpet on it, as he called it, or Venturi nozzle. It's a Venturi system that we use to deliver the air. It's free aeration if you think about it. It's quite nice. You don't have to hook it up to a compressor or anything like that. You get free air to freshen the tank and provide oxygen. But a Venturi system is a system for speeding the flow of the fluid by constricting it in a cone-shaped tube. That creates a high pressure situation. In the restriction end, the fluid increases its velocity, which reduces its pressure and produces a partial vacuum, and the air and water are mixed into the bulk liquid and ultimately discharged. So that's how it works, a very simple system to get air into sludge and other applications where we need to maybe add a little air to freshen things up or to increase the amount of DO in a basin. This is some still shots of that plant that Matt showed you in the opening of the video. This is Landia County Municipal Utility District, not too far from Austin, about an hour drive from Austin. And you can see the Irrigator that we put into the wet well there. what it looked like before it went in. And here's a picture of it going in. And as you saw in the video, we had to really work to get it in there a little bit because the scum layer was so thick. And but once we got it in and got it operating, of course, you know that the surface of that lift station became clear. The most important thing, though, was that the neighbors around that particular lift station, that's the Deer Haven lift station, the neighbors there stopped complaining about odors because we got rid of odors by adding the air. And the gentleman who runs the mud now runs our irrigator about 15 minutes every day. In the morning, he turns it on and makes sure it runs for a little bit of time to bust up any scum and chew up any rags that accumulated in that wet well overnight. And that's all he needs to run it. So it's not running continuously. It doesn't cost him a lot of money to run it. And he's able to keep his lift station clean. And we have a very satisfied customer there in Llano County. Matt mentioned the oxigator and specifically showed you video from Fairfield, Texas. The oxigator is another part of our product line that is very helpful to operators and owners and to engineers who need to do something about problematic brush rotors and maybe some other type of aeration device that's just not able to add enough air in the oxidation ditch. And so here's a drawing of the Fairfield ditch. And you can see the brush rotor there in the picture on the right. And some of those rotors are working, some aren't. And so they needed to add a little extra air. It was quite costly to repair and get replacement parts for some of those rotors. So the oxigator was a perfect setup for Fairfield. And so you saw from the video, we made a simple modification to getting the oxigator in. They didn't have a bridge across the ditch where we needed to put the oxigator. So we used this type of setup to initially demonstrate to them that the Landia oxigator would work and help them. And so it was part of a demonstration that we did for the city of Fairfield. And so it went in fairly easy. And it was a fun day out there at the plant to install that. And once we got it in place and started up, it really started, we could see right away a big difference in even how the ditch looked. And so again, you can see the aspirating pipe there. That's all that's sticking up out of the water other than the power cable and the chain that is used to support the unit or to lift it out, that is. And we're providing free air, so to speak. It just costs what it, the only cost for that air is the cost to run the pump. And so it's a very nice way to add supplemental air to an oxidation ditch. And here's a still shot of the air bubbles coming up from the oxigator, looking very nice, creating velocity at the bottom of the ditch. And that's a key thing in the profiles that we did there, is that we could see that we were getting good DO gradients from top to bottom in the ditch because we're adding air at the bottom. You can see the brush rotor there behind the oxigator. And that was good at getting air in the surface, the top few feet or so of the ditch, obviously. But now with both the brush rotors and the oxigator working simultaneously on the real hot days, they have no troubles whatsoever in getting enough DO in their ditch. So very nice demonstration there. Here's just another snapshot of the oxigators in action. And so the results were back in July and early August of 2020, when we took some ditch DO profiles right at the turning vane at the end of the ditch, it showed about an average DO of 1.4 ppm of DO. But some days that number was quite low. Sometimes we would measure it, we would be 0.2, 0.3 ppm. And the effluent channel DO was just above 5 parts per million. And that was, if I'm not mistaken, that it was their discharge, that was their limit. That was what they had to report. And so they were operating right at the border, right at the edge, and didn't have any breathing room, so to speak, on the real hot days in the summer here in Texas. And so when we installed the oxigator in late August and had it continuously running and looking carefully through October and into November, we began to see that the ditch profiles showed the average DO jumping up to about 2.8 ppm. And again, the profile from top to bottom show those type of numbers. So they were getting good DO readings at the top, middle, and bottom of the oxidation ditch. And because we were able to do that and be very efficient in the aeration, their effluent channel DO went up to 7.6 or greater. I think 7.6 was the lowest number we ever measured when we looked at what the DO leaving the ditch was in those hot months. And that gave them a good significant amount of breathing room in order to meet their permit. And so the final result, of course, as Matt said earlier, was that the customer purchased the equipment after the trial period and are quite satisfied still today. So the Oxigator is a very nice product for adding air to oxidation ditches. And fortunately for us, just down the road from Fairfield, a customer in Jewett, Texas, heard about this demonstration that we were doing at Fairfield. We had some other customers from other plants come and visit and tour Fairfield. Fairfield was very gracious to us in allowing outside visitors to come and look at the Oxigator installation there at Fairfield. And all those customers that came were quite impressed after talking with the owner and seeing with their own eyes what was happening. And the city of Jewett has issued a purchase order for a Landia Oxigator to add additional air to their oxidation ditch. And so it's a very nice product, a very good way of adding air to any tank. It doesn't have to be an oxidation ditch. We've put these type of Gator series in aerobic digesters, in sludge holding tanks, even in EQ basins. So anywhere we need to add supplemental air, the Gator series can usually really do a great job of adding that much needed air. Well, I'm going to finish up kind of just talking about the air jets. The air jets are air jets and air-gators are almost about the same unit, but the air jets, we can provide a dry mounted type setup. And as you see from that picture right there, not all of our units have to be submersible, of course, and in some tanks, especially EQ tanks and sludge holding tanks, this is a very nice setup. We can add air without having to use a compressor in a nice setup where the pump is outside, there's no moving parts inside the tank, and the pump is positioned at ground level, grade level, where it's easy to reach for maintenance. And so a very nice setup. And so we have both the submersible type that you see there, and Trinity River Authority has used some of those submersible air jets in some of their plants here in Texas. And then we have the dry mount that you see there at the bottom with a stainless steel wet end, of course, if we need to handle low pH or corrosive conditions. These are just some photos, snapshots of what a typical air jet, submersible and dry mount looks like. We can put them on a guide rail system to make it a very permanent installation where you can adjust the angle of the air jet in a tank to get good mixing and good aeration. Here's another snapshot of a system like that. And here's a snapshot of Village Creek in Arlington, Texas, that treats the city of Fort Worth's wastewater. They had a waste activated sludge holding tank on their biosolids facility. And we were able to install, and this is going back, this has been operating now for a good long period of time, quite a few number of years. They wanted us to install this without drilling an additional hole in the side of their tank. So we just used the existing manway that was there and custom made the connection there for the suction and discharge. And very nice application. And in the last year and a half, they have upgraded that biosolids facility and have added even more Landia air jets and Landia side entry mixers they just finished building a 5 million gallon sludge holding tank that has both our air jets and side entry mixers there to keep it well mixed. This is in Gun Barrel City, Texas, at East Cedar Creek Freshwater Utilities District. And here they had a problem with odor complaints from the many vacationers that would come down to the 2 man-made lakes there in Gun Barrel City on the weekends from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And the city manager was getting lots of complaints about odors. And so the engineer looked at several options and came up with the idea that probably the best way to solve this problem would be to put this bolted steel tank there in the plant and put Landia air jets on the outside. And that was installed back in 2004. And even to this day, they're still operating fine, and they've had zero odor complaints in all those years since. So it's a very good way of adding air and knocking down odors. And this particular application was an EQ tank. And then finally, here's an example of where we put our air jet in at Hutto, Texas, at their new wastewater treatment plant that they built. This has been operating now for going on about 4 years. And you can see there, that's a concrete tank. And they were able to easily install the Landia air jet dry mount type setup. And they put one on one side of the tank and another air jet on the other side. And I was there not long ago, actually, maybe about a month and a half ago now. And the owner said they're running fine, no complaints. He said he doesn't have to worry about those pieces of equipment at all. And he's very satisfied with how they've been operating. So that's our product line on the chopper pump side. I'm just going to finish with 2 more slides, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Matt. But Landia, of course, makes submersible mixers as well that are used in wastewater applications. Most often we use these mixers in biological nutrient removal setups where we need to put a mixer in an anaerobic or anoxic zone. But we have a very nice product there to offer customers, and we offer, I think we're the only manufacturer of mixers that offer long guarantees on the propeller materials, because we only use stainless steel propellers, and we can offer long guarantees on them because they hold up very well in wastewater applications. And then, of course, mirrored with the submersible mixers for BNR is the need for wall pumps, or internal recycle pumps, as they're often called. And basically, that's to take the nitrified mixed liquor and return it back up to the anoxic zone. And so these pumps are low head, high volume pumps, and very much designed like our mixers. And I mentioned Village Creek earlier, that has not only our air jets, but they also have a good number of these propeller pumps as well in their BNR system. So we're here to help however we can with not only chopping and macerating and nasty lift stations, but also in helping you mix tanks or whatever the case may be. Landia's probably got a product line that can help you solve some very unique problems. So I'm going to turn it back over to Matt, and he's going to finish up for us.
Thanks, Art. Good job. So to sum it up, Smith Pump's been in business since 1962. We've got years and years of experience with pumping equipment. Now we've got a lot of experience with chopper pumps, and teamed up with Art, we can solve a lot of your problems. So if you've got problems and you want our help, here's our territory map. Pick your territory and use our 800 number to call for your particular salesman. We'll be glad to come out and look at what you got and help you resolve your problems. And now we'll just open it up for questions.
So guys, the first question we had was, what is the flow and head range for the Gator series of pumps?
You want to do that, Art?
Yeah, so our pumps, depending on the size of the pump, we go anywhere from about 50 gallons a minute all the way up to 2,000 and some gallons per minute. We don't really, if they're used as an irrigator, we don't have to worry too much about the total head range, since we're just recirculating the contents of a wet well or a tank. But our chopper pumps can, we can handle duty applications all the way up to well over 100 feet of total dynamic head.
Yeah, up to 50 horsepower. So most lift stations we can help out on.
So Matt, can you answer, how is a chopper pump different than a grinder pump?
So yeah, that's a good question. Grinder pumps are designed for really high head, low flow. Most grinder pumps go up to a maximum of 15 horsepower. The chopper pump is designed for the lower head, higher flow, goes up to 50 horsepower, 48 horsepower, and designed, like I say, designed for a higher flow. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
What is the average lifespan of the cutter assembly, and what is the difficulty of changing it out?
So we've got a great example. We put in a chopper pump. I think they were 25 horsepower at Madisonville. And it's the influent lift station pumping into the treatment plant. So everything in the city goes through these pumps. And just a month ago, I showed the guys how to change the fixed knives and the rotating blades. And it took us about 30 minutes. The cost of the unit, the knife set was around $1,200. And like Art said earlier, all you need is Allen wrench. Real simple to change. Very, and pretty much cost effective. It's pretty cheap.
Yeah, and you don't have to take the whole pump apart to replace the cutting mechanism. Pumps that use a cutting impeller, you have to disassemble the whole thing, and you have to maintain, or you have to watch for the tolerance between the cutting edge and the cutting bar. And so that's usually better done in a workshop setting where you can measure those tolerances and make sure you keep them. But with a Landia chopper pump, you can do it right there in the field, right where you pull it up out of the wet well or the basin, turn it over on its side, and in a very short period of time, you don't have to worry about tolerances with the external knife system. We have a couple of little shims that we provide with the knives, so that the only thing we want to make sure is that the rotating knives don't hit the fixed knives. And but you can easily do that right at the field. So again, much easier to maintain, and a whole lot less expensive than having to purchase new cutting impellers each time.
So we also got a couple questions about duty pump application. What size discharge flanges are available, and how difficult is it to adapt to existing guide rail systems?
So,
Yeah, well, go ahead, Matt.
Well, what I know is enough sure they come in 4 and 6 inch discharge flanges on the pump. It's a 150-pound standard flange. So in most cases that I've run into, or I guess I should say in every case that I've run into, we were able to unbolt the sealing flange off the existing pump, bolt it right onto the new chopper pump, and slide it right down the guide rail system. So Art, you may want, if it goes bigger than 6 inch, go ahead and elaborate.
No, but you're right. I mean, that's one nice thing about our chopper pump. Again, I don't think we've encountered any other manufacturer's pump where maybe it's not a chopper pump, but maybe it's just a regular centrifugal pump, and it's just having to deal with debris and solids that it just can't handle. So we've been able to put our pumps on just about any guide rail system by any other pump manufacturer, simply by, as Matt said, bolting the guide claw onto our discharge of the pump. So it's a very easy to do the retrofits.
How large of a well can a single irrigator be effective in?
Yeah, well, most typically wet wells just are small enough where we only ever use just a single irrigator or eradicator. I suppose once we get, if we encounter a wet well that's probably larger than about 25 foot square, then we may look at having to use a second unit, but we very seldom encounter that. So just a single unit is usually sufficient enough. And depending on the size of the wet well, we may use a different horsepower size for the irrigator. But generally speaking, just a single irrigator is enough.
What kind of warranty does the chopper pump come with?
So it's a standard 1-year warranty that we offer. And then, of course, we always offer extended warranties, and we can even offer all-inclusive service agreements where we come in and do the service. And if we do that, we renew the warranty so that basically the pump never goes out of warranty, depending on what the customer wants. But right out the standard warranty for Landia for the chopper pumps is a 1 year from startup.
Okay, looks like the next two are about the motor side of it. Can the Landia pumps run on VFD, and what kind of thermal and moisture protection is available for the motor?
So,
Yes. Go ahead,
yes,
Matt.
the Landia pump motor is an inverter D-rated motor. If you run it on a VFD, we want the VFD to be a constant torque VFD because of the cutter assembly needs that. We don't want reduced torque when that pump's trying to start or chew things up. And it's got the thermal sensor and the seal sensor options with it.
Yeah, so obviously on the submersible unit, our only requirement is that the unit stays submerged, at least from the motor top end of the motor up and above. We want to make sure it's cooled by the water. The thermal sensors will open at 248 degrees and protect the unit. So really nice setup there, standard typical motor setup.
And it's a continuous duty unit. I think Art has a customer that's had some running for, was it 9 years, 24 hours, 7 days a week, or 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Is that right?
Yeah, we have some customers where the pump is turned on and hardly ever is turned off, except for maintenance. So it can run 24/7. And the nice thing about the irradiator and the irrigator type setup, even the oxigator, there are times of the day and times of the year where you don't have to operate it 24/7. And so there's timers in the control panel that allow you to run the oxigator, let's say, or the irrigator for 1 hour and then off for a couple of hours and on again, or run continuously for 8 hours and then turn off for the remainder of the day. But the good thing is you can go in and fine tune that system, set it up. The timers are easy enough for you to adjust, the owner to adjust, and you can manipulate it to run as needed. In the hot summer months, you may have to run them longer than in the fall and winter months. But again, you have great flexibility to control that at the control panel. You can integrate it into a SCADA PLC type setup and do it from your computer. But the nice thing is, again, you can fit it for your application.
Matt, on one of your videos about the oxidation ditch, you mentioned the trial offer. Can you elaborate on what the trial offer is with Landia?
Sure. So we can do a demo. You can do it 60 days or 90 days. It is not a free demo, so there is an additional, there isn't a cost in the beginning to cover, the freight to get it here and help with installation and getting it all up and running. So there is a cost, but it's pretty minimal, and run it for 90 days. And then if you like the results, then you can purchase it. And the trial cost is deducted from the purchase price. So demos are an option, and they work out real well.
All right, thank you guys. It looks like all we got right now.
Okay. Well, that's great. Art, I
appreciate everybody joining in.
Yeah. If any of you customers or engineers out there have questions or need help with the lift station, please contact Smith Pump, and we will come see you and help you with your problems. Thanks for joining the webinar, and have a great day.
Okay, we'll see you guys.